When we talk about carbon, everybody uses the same standard. It's used by about 90% of companies throughout the world. Let's have a look and see what that is, okay? So everybody in business uses the same standard to kind of the way they measure carbon. Sometimes they report it in different ways, but the actual measurement, how it's all put together, is all pretty much uniform throughout the world. It's based on a standard called the GHG protocol, or the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is developed by the World Resources Institute. And I've got my cheat notes here, so you must excuse that. And if you hear any traffic noise, I'm sorry, we're filming out on location and you might hear the odd truck go by. But GHG is used throughout the world, very popular. It splits carbon into three scopes, okay? Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. Scope 1's the easiest, it's really stuff you burn, okay? So everything you burn, gas, fuel, petrol, diesel, stuff like that, that is lumped together into this category that they call Scope 1. The second category, dead easy, Scope 2, is electricity. It's got some other bits and bobs in, but 99% of the time it's just electricity, okay? And then Scope 3, and Scope 3 is where the fun starts. Scope 3 is the complicated one. Scope 3 is called the indirect emissions, and it's what you don't use as a company yourself, but you cause other people to use on your behalf. And Scope 3 itself is split into kind of 15 subcategories, so it's by far the most complex. And those subcategories are, he says, this is reading from my book, so if you Net Zero for Business, go onto Amazon, buy that, give it a good review, I'll love you forever. But the 15 categories are Category 1, purchase goods and services. That's called supply chain, and that's the hardest one by a long shot out of these 15 subcategories of Scope 3. Capital goods, that's quite straightforward. It's the carbon in the stuff you buy, the big items. Fuel and energy related activities, it's complex, but I won't probably go into that. Upstream transportation and distribution, that's deliveries in, yeah, that's kind of useful. Waste, business travel, employee commuting, upstream leased assets, again, not many people do that, so you tend not to concentrate too much on those. Downstream transportation and distribution, 3.9, Scope 3, Section 9, that's your deliveries you make out to clients, so it's nice and easy. So everybody does that, really. Processing of sold goods, it's manufacturing, really. Use of sold products, end-of-life treatment, what happens when the products that you make are disposed of. Downstream leased assets, what you lease to other people. Franchises, and then investments. Okay, so 15 of those sort of subcategories of Scope 3, but there's a but. The but is, lots of standards, reporting standards, use GHG, but they don't use all those 15 Scope 3s. They typically use a subset, either 5 or 6 of them. The 5 that we use and the sixth is the optional one in UK reporting is deliveries to us, deliveries we make, waste, commuting and business travel. And then for net zero, we add the extra one in, which is supply chain, because you just can't ignore it, it's too large. So those 6 categories are used all over the place, and the others, they tend not to be. So, if you don't know your downstream least asset carbon use, I wouldn't really bother. Not many people use it, okay? At large companies, when they report on science-based targets, they have to include all of those. But most other people just don't bother reporting anything apart from the 6 I've just mentioned. So, when you look at those categories, you can't see it down here, but I'll see if I can pop it on the screen for you. You actually, when you report your carbon footprint, you report against those different things. So you see Scope 1, Scope 2, and then the various Scope 3s. And there's an example of that down here where gas, electricity, transport, supply chain. I'll ask one of my colleagues to pop that on the screen so you can see it. And I've put an example here of a real life carbon footprint, which is Amazon's carbon footprint, which is a cool 71.54 million tons of CO2, which is huge. It's just really, really large. When will you see the reports? When you look at these kind of carbon reports, they typically have, a couple of things in them that virtually all of them have. The first thing they have what your carbon footprint was in the current year or the past financial year. Okay, that's one column. You always refer that back to a base year. So you say, for example, I have saved 35% carbon compared to, and then the base year. So the second column you need is what the base year was. And then finally you need whether that's gone up or down, the percentage change. The carbon footprint, that's the basics of what you'll see reported. The thing that you can use to your advantage, and the thing that you see in some carbon footprint reports, is an intensity level, it's called carbon intensity. Because if your business is growing or shrinking, it's not just really about the absolute amount of carbon you generated, but how much carbon you generated per thing you make, or per customer you visit, or per pound of profit you make. And we'll cover that in later videos, okay? So there you go, that's the long and short of what standard, the greenhouse gas protocol, that's behind all of the carbon reporting in the world, the vast majority of it. If you want more details, have a look at my book, Net Zero for Business. It's available on Amazon, and if you give it a good review, I'll love you for it. All right, see you next time.